Hello everyone and welcome to another weekly recap. Another week of the Overwatch League in the books. The mid-season madness regular season has finished. We have the playoffs starting on Monday, so in like 7 days from this recording of this video. So we're finally going to see the East go up against the West. Yes, it will be online. The Western teams are traveling to Hawaii. The Eastern teams will stay put and they will play on high ping together. We'll get to see them face off. I'm excited to see what we're going to see. I think there's going to be some interesting clash of styles coming from the East and the West, but hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So I'll be doing the power rankings later in this recap. I'll be doing my Pickem's Bracket as well. So stick around for that one if you want to check that out. I'll skip forward. I'd probably put timestamps in. If not, I'm sorry. So let's just start with the basic news first and we'll make our way through it. So first things first, Paris Eternal signed assistant coach Forces to the Paris Eternal. It looks to be another step in the Paris Eternal team going towards, I guess, Western/European, more of a team like that. We've since seen them lose Glister, and the team has just been overall struggling really badly. Played even worse over the last couple of weeks. It just doesn't look good. So hopefully, Forces can have a positive impact on the Overwatch League in the future. Now we have some housekeeping as well. Overwatch is running a really cool tournament on July 12th, which is tomorrow. So tomorrow they are doing, probably tomorrow. They're doing a Twitch Rivals event for Pride celebration, which is really awesome. You know, Overwatch has always done these kind of things. People like to beat down Overwatch, but Overwatch has always done a great job with these kind of Pride things. So they're doing a 250,000 prize pool that supports the Trevor project. That's all happening tomorrow. There's going to be some epic Overwatch 2 gameplay. Go support the streamers. Go watch the Twitch Rivals. It's going to be a cool event for a good cause. Yeah, go check it out. So in Overwatch gameplay news though, let's keep us moving along. We have a beta patch notes coming out today. This is the major changes with Mercy and Moira. There is reported by Overwatch developers and people who are in the know that there will be more balance changes coming for the other heroes in the future. But this patch that came out today on July the 11th is just for Mercy and just for Moira. And it's the reworks that the developers have been talking about a little bit as of late. So they changed Mercy's Guardian Angel so that it no longer automatically kicks you up when you get closer to people. There is now a bar that goes up on the right side as you use it, and you have a lot more control of mobility. When you cancel it, you can go a certain direction, you can go backwards, and you actually have a ton of mobility. I really liked this change. I just messed around with it. I think it makes Mercy's mobility way more fun. There is way more that you can do with it. It's way more intuitive, which is the whole point of a lot of these Mercy changes, is it's just easier for less skilled people or people who haven't played with the hero for thousands of hours to understand how you can move freely. I think there does need to be some tweaking. I think the movement that you get when you're very close to someone and you use your GA is like minuscule. And I think that there should be at least a little bit of hopping that you can do in movement. So like the base level of the jump should be higher. When you get at max charge, your mobility is actually pretty good, but I think it just needs to scale better from the bottom, if that makes sense, and then it'll be perfect. I really like the change. I think people are going to be able to do some really cool stuff with this. It is definitely, you can't go as high as you used to with these super jumps, but I think it's, with the ability to control the direction and have more freedom to do more things, I think it is overall net positive for Guardian Angel and movement of Mercy. Moira is the big change coming in here though. So I'm not going to read exactly all the patch notes, but I'll summarize what it is said here. So essentially what happens is there is a Moira orb. They got rid of the damage orb and they turned the purple orb into something that is called a necrotic orb, or enfeebling for right now. So what it does is when you hit someone with this orb, it reduces the damage that they deal, which is an effect called weakened, by 75%. So they do 25% of their regular damage. So I really like the idea of providing a damage nerf to someone. It is a skill orb that you have to shoot. It has pretty high mobility, kind of the same speed as a damage orb by default, but the orb is smaller and has a small radius in which it blows up. So it's a cool idea because you can use it against dives, against certain ultimates, and reduce the effectiveness of those ultimates and abilities, giving Moira some form of utility and something different other than just lots of damage and lots of healing. I played around with it a little bit, and I don't like the numbers of it right now. I think the 16-second cooldown is way too long. It makes it feel like if you don't get crazy value from it, it doesn't really exist. Like, you hit someone with it. So let's say you just shoot it in their general direction when they're pseudo pushing. It hits like one person. They're weakened for 4 seconds, but that doesn't really change the outcome of the fight. And for something that's on the 16-second cooldown, even if you hit someone, it doesn't have that much effectiveness. I would prefer to see it go down to about a 10-second cooldown. Make it mirror the healing cooldown, the cooldown of your healing orb, which is 10 seconds now, as you can see from here with a nerfed healing. Make them both 10 seconds so that you have that mental timer in your brain. And then reduce the effectiveness of the weaken to 50%. I don't think the weaken needs to be 75%. That is an absurdly high number. It doesn't need to be that high. You can reduce the effectiveness to just 50%, reduce the cooldown of it, and I think it'll be in a better spot. Maybe reduce the duration of the weaken to 3 seconds as well instead of the 4 seconds. So it becomes something that you can spam more. If someone gets hit by it, it's a negative, but it is not game changing, right? So it has some cool plays. It'll be able to affect dives. It'll be able to affect certain ultimates, but it's not just going to be this one cooldown that you either get crazy effectiveness of it or no effectiveness of it. So I think that would make her feel a lot more fun and feel it a lot more intuitive and feel like you're doing more, because that's been Moira's biggest issue as a hero is she does a lot of healing and damage, but it doesn't feel like you're doing anything interesting. And it doesn't, when you're losing to it, it doesn't feel like the Moira is doing anything interesting to stop you from playing the game. She just does a ton of healing and a ton of damage and you just fall over. So hopefully this is a better change. I like the change from it overall. I think Moira is going into a much better spot. The weakened ability is cool, just needs some tweaking, in my opinion. Obviously this is beta, everything is still being tested, everything is being looked at and looking at the numbers, how it fills out. So the developers are keeping an eye on people's opinions on these two hero changes. And that's it. So that is the major changes from this patch notes. There was some armor change, that it is important, but it's not a big deal for most people. Just making it so that when someone only has one armor, that it's working effectively. So yeah, importantly, as I said, John Spector, who is now, I actually can't even remember what his title is. He is the commercial leader and VP for Overwatch at Blizzard. He said that we're also working to deploy balance changes for several more heroes with the hotfix as early as tomorrow. But as we continue to test this rapid patching technology for Overwatch 2, we are not yet fully certain about that follow-up patch. So there are more changes. There is more balance expected to come. When it is coming is not 100% sure, because there is a lot of issues with balancing things, especially with a beta that exists on console. Pushing patches on consoles are a lot more difficult than just doing it on PC. So that's where we stand with this new beta patch. That's where the beta is at right now. I think we have, what do we have? We have another week left with the beta. Actually, how long does the beta last for? Or when does the beta go down? Someone in chat able to help me out? I wanted to say it's the 18th of July, but I might be wrong about that. 19th of July? 19th of July, it was right. 17th, yeah, we only have about a week left in it, so they're pushing a late patch into the thing, so make sure to get testing, give them as much data as possible and feedback as possible with the changes that are going to come through. Wobble, wobble, motherfucker. All right. So, actually, let's do the weekly recap before we go into power rankings. So let's talk about what happened in the week of Overwatch League in the last regular season matches. So let's talk about it. We have the Guangzhou Charge facing off against Philadelphia Fusion. The Fusion did beat the Charge. They did drop a map in true Charge fashion, showing a good performance in the first map, but then falling over essentially the Fusion. Fusion are looking a little bit better. I like their dive with the Belisria Zest playing that Tracer Genji, and MN3 had a crazy match against the Seoul Dynasty and is one of the major proponents of why the Philadelphia Fusion got the advantage over the Seoul Dynasty. So it was cool to see Philadelphia Fusion Hopium being raised only to be crushed in the playoffs later. I'm sure I'll probably have that idea in my bracket later on when we do that one. Shanghai Dragons continuing their domination from the previous weekend, looking to be a much better, well-rounded team with Fate and Lee Jae-gon in the lineup. Lip and Fled are both playing at a high level. They're able to take down the Chengdu Hunters 3-1. Chengdu, with this loss, I believe, fell out of the playoffs for the mid-season tournament. And they also went on to lose to the Hangzhou Spark 3-0. So Chengdu Hunters, opposed to what some of the Hunters fans were saying, they are, in fact, not back. Talking about not back teams, the Los Angeles Valiant, the honeymoon period is 100% over at this point. They got booty boxed by the Seoul Dynasty and lost to the Hangzhou Spark as well. Just some great performances there from the Spark, but the Valiant just not able to really put up consistently good performances. Marvel and Molly playing well, but not good enough to get over these top 4 teams in the Eastern region. Shanghai beat the Charge as well. So we're heading out of this Eastern region, and it feels like we're in a place of Seoul Dynasty are going to be at number 1 spot, even after losing to the Philadelphia Fusion. It's going to be interesting to see if that was just a slight stumble or Philadelphia Fusion overperforming to expectations. But the Seoul Dynasty losing a match, it kind of made me hesitant on picking Seoul Dynasty as number 1 heading into this mid-season tournament as we cross these teams. Lucio Zenyatta for Los Angeles Valiant. Please stop playing it. It is not good, but this is the last we'll see of the Valiant. They did not make the mid-season tournament, so Valiant, maybe they'll come back and Lucio Zen will be meta and they'll be ahead. But yeah, that is it for the Eastern region. Seoul Dynasty, probably number 1. Shanghai Dragons looking pretty good, number 2. And you can never count out the Hangzhou Spark or the Philadelphia Fusion with how much talent they have in their rosters. So the West region, let's talk about the West. Houston Outlaws versus the New York Excelsior. Houston just 2 map 5s back to back. They went to 5 with Boston. They went to 5 with New York. They're a good team that just refuse to have good performances. They are the definition of a mid team right now. They gave me no confidence over the weekend that they're going to be able to perform well in the mid-season tournament. They have theoretically good players in it. You know, Lastro's able to play that Zenyatta now. Pelican's been doing well on the Genji, having some hard pop-offs. But just stringing the whole thing together just is not good. Piggy when Piggy comes in to play the Sigma, they look worse. They just don't look proactive. Dante Doomfist looks good, but I don't know. I don't know what's really going on with the Houston Outlaws team. Full definition of the talent is there. They should not be going to map 5 in New York. They should not be going to map 5 with Boston, even if those teams have been performing a little bit better as of late. San Francisco Shock went up against the Toronto Defiant and played quite well. They did throw a Dorado map against the Shock, and it just looked ugly. And it's one of the reasons I always get a little worried about this Shock team. The same thing happened in Kickoff Clash, especially in the playoffs. They were just dropping a couple of maps against teams they shouldn't have. They were always having to work from, have an uphill battle because they decided that, we're just going to lose a couple of maps at the beginning. We're going to start a little slow. So I'm not sold that the San Francisco Shock are going to be able to dominate through these playoffs like some people believe. I think they have great individual performances and talent, and they show that, and that's why they get most of their wins. But I don't think their coordination is there at the same level of the Los Angeles Gladiators or the Seoul Dynasty. So will talent be able to get them over that line? Maybe they'll prove me wrong that they can have that synergy when it is required, but I don't know. I'm not sold on it right now, but they are always a team that you have to worry about. They are on the top 4. I think there are 4 teams that can win this mid-season madness. The major front runners, that's the Shock, the Gladiators, the Shanghai Dragons, and the Seoul Dynasty. Those are the favorites going into this tournament. Atlanta Reign got a 3-0 over the Paris Eternal. This was just ugly. Paris Eternal they need a break, and they need to press the reset button. Atlanta Reign being dominant, but Atlanta's one of those teams as well that I'm not convinced. They're like the Houston Outlaws to me, that they're just kind of mid. They can compete with everybody, but they just don't string it together enough. The Reign seem to always find a new gear when we get into the playoffs, so maybe they'll be able to step up and perform. You know, they always, you know, when everything's on the line, they'll be good, but will they even be good enough to be able to compete with those top 4 that I just mentioned? I don't see it. I don't see it at this point. Then we have the Washington Justice versus the Vancouver Titans. This is going to be the first match that we're going to review for this week, so we're probably going to do it directly after recording this video. There will be a VOD review of this one on the channel. It was historical. It was one of the worst matches. I would say it's in the top 5 of the worst matches we've ever had in the Overwatch League. I think it's in the top 5 list of just, there was everything wrong with this match, but it was glorious that it was entertaining. It was so bad that it was entertaining. So we'll go have a look at this one. We'll talk about it and break down what happened in this match, but we'll move on for now. The Houston Outlaws, we already talked about this match. Florida Mayhem got bopped by the Gladiators. Kevster and Reiner were crazy in this match. Their synergy on their dive with the Doomfist Tracer, it's just unmatched. The Gladiators looking to be on a completely different level right now. Probably my favorites heading into this midseason tournament, even over the Eastern region teams. Florida Mayhem have just not really found their footing in this midseason tournament. They've gotten some wins, but in comparison to where we had them in the kickoff clash, just not sold. Even with Exy performing quite well on this Sojin, I just think there is a bit of a... It feels like they're starting to see the peak, right? Like we're not going to see them get over this like mid-range, but I think they're firmly there. Dallas Fuel took on the London Spitfire. We got to see the dive really come to fruition for the Dallas Fuel. Do I think Dallas Fuel is going to be able to compete with these top 4? No. I'm not sold with how Dallas is playing right now. They look better with Fearless on that dive, but London Spitfire are able to push them. And this isn't even disrespect to London Spitfire. London Spitfire are not a great dive team, but even London were able to sort of force Dallas Fuel to be uncomfortable a little bit from time to time. London Spitfire, I believe, won Gibraltar, a pretty heavy dive map. So Dallas just haven't really been able to identify how to play this meta, and I think that it'll be fine for them. They'll compete well with a lot of the mid-range teams, but I don't expect them to go very far in this tournament right now. Then we had the New York Excelsior take on the Boston Uprising, and you know, it's sort of what we talked about with New York of they have these individual pop-up moments. Yaki does go crazy every now and then, but there's no teamwork here. There's no synergy. They're just 5 people running around a server hoping that they pop off. If they don't pop off, if someone doesn't go crazy, then they just lose. And that is the big issue for them. That's why they're 1-11. They have great players, but if they can't play together as a team, then it does not matter. And Boston Uprising proves that Boston does not have great individual players, in my opinion. They are solid players, but the teamwork is really the thing that highlights to me. Neither of those teams, New York or Boston, made it into the playoffs for the midseason tournament, but Boston is a much better position to get that final seeding going into the playoffs, because that's where it all matters, right? When you get to the playoffs, the top 10 teams in the North American regions will be eligible to qualify for the playoffs. So seeding 7 to 10 in North America, there'll be 2 spots. So as long as you're not 11th or 12th at the end of the season, you will get a shot at the playoffs, and I think Boston is primed for that position, while New York, what do we got? New York is 1-11, Vancouver Titans are 0-12, Paris Eternal, I don't think have that much better of a record either, so Boston's sitting pretty, while a couple of these other teams not looking great as well. And that was the Western recap. That's where we stand on the West. So let's do our power rankings, and then we'll do our Pickem Bracket after this one. Paris is 1-11 as well. Oh boy. So let's get our power rankings in. Let's start from the bottom and make our way up. So first of all, any team that didn't make it, I don't care about. I really just don't care about you if you didn't qualify. Vancouver Titans will go below the Washington Justice. Toronto stay in. Shanghai, Seoul Dynasty, Philadelphia Fusion, Paris Eternal. I think Paris is worse than Washington. I think it goes Washington. I'll put Washington above Vancouver just because they won that match, but I don't think anyone won that match. Valiant, Charge, Let's go like, don't look into this too much, but I'm sort of giving this a soft feeling of where everyone stands. Nope, that was supposed to be Chengdu. So, let's talk about this. That seems right? There's 8 from the west, 4 from the east, and then... Oh, New York. Yeah, New York, sorry. Boston? Oh, shit, I must have moved Boston back up. Dude, this... Sorry, it's fucking with me. Let's put Boston, like, here. New York can go, like, here. All right, there we go. So, we don't really care about these bottom teams. You can read into all this all you want, but it's not a big deal. These teams are all pretty average at this point. So, let's talk about the top-end teams. Let's go to the top, actually. Let's reset and go back to the top, because I think we have to put the front runners at the front. So, I'm going to put Gladiators at number 1, Seoul Dynasty at number 2, Shanghai Dragons at number 3, and then the San Francisco Shock at number 4. So, that is how I'm going to do my bracket here. That is how I'm going into this. Oh, hey, Kriv. Don't worry. You might want to look away for where I'm about to put the Florida Mayhem. Philly higher? No. I think Philly have had a very bad stage. They did just beat the Seoul Dynasty. So, yeah, Philadelphia Fusion. They go into the 5th spot. That's why they're at the top, but they had a bad stage. They had a bad midseason, but they did just beat the Seoul Dynasty, so they have to be there. But they're not going into the top 4. They're not going into the top 4 for that reason. Atlanta Reign, Houston Outlaws, Dallas Fuel, Hangzhou Spark, London Spitfire, Tier Break, Toronto Defiant, Florida Mayhem. Seems good. You're right. Actually, someone said Hangzhou below Dallas. I think you're right by that. I think Hangzhou goes above Dallas. But I'm not in love with Hangzhou. I'm not in love with Hangzhou right now. I just am not in love with what they're doing. And I just feel like I've been let down by Hangzhou so much that I just don't trust them in the playoffs. I just don't trust them. Outlaws that high? Yeah. Like, I could put Outlaws... No, Spark in the playoffs always suck, but Houston also sucks in the playoffs, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, you know what? This is to Jake. This is to Jake for lying to me in the bathroom. Houston Outlaws never perform well in the playoffs. They've only won 1 match in the playoffs. I'm going to put Spark above them. Oh, yeah, I think that's fair. Didn't like what he was cooking? Yeah. And Houston they just went to map 5 with Boston, with MYXL. I'm definitely not super high on them. But all of these teams, I think it's important to note, this is the questionable zone of like, all of these teams are good, but I don't know where to put them. They're all just a fucking anomaly. They decide one week they want to be good, and then another week they're like, oh, never mind, we suck. Sorry. Good luck. So this is kind of like a circle of suck, but also a circle of talent. So that's where we are. And the 2 dark horses that I believe aren't going to perform well is Florida and Toronto. I don't see Toronto putting up consistent performances unless they pull out some form of synergy, coordination out of their back pocket. I don't see them being able to beat any of these other teams. And Florida Mayhem, how are we under Toronto? Because you guys have looked awful so far, Hydron. You guys haven't been great. Okay. All right, let me try and defend you guys. Let me see if I'm just off the goop. Maybe it's because I got so high on you guys. I was so excited for you. Oh, well, you did beat Toronto. You did beat Toronto. And maybe I'm just thinking you guys are awful because you got beaten by Shock and Glad. You know what, Hydron? You've convinced me. You've convinced me. Well, you win. You win. Shock the world. By far the hardest schedule. Yeah, maybe I'm being too harsh on Florida. But I think I have to put you under the tier break. This tier break is like the long shots. Like, Florida's going to need to pull form out of nowhere. That was easy. Well, he was correct. You know, Hydron was right. It's not even just biased. I think it goes Florida, Toronto. But I don't think I can put Florida over London, Dallas, or any of those other guys. I think I'm going to leave it like this. This is my power rankings. I'm putting Gladiators number 1. I think after Seoul Dynasty lost to the Fusion, yes, it was a great performance by Fusion. But I think the Gladiators, after watching that match where they just ran rampant with the dive of Kevs to Reiner, I'm actually a little sold. But Seoul could potentially come in and just dominate everything. Shanghai Dragons at number 3. I think the Shanghai Dragons always seem to step up in the playoffs. I think they have been playing well as of late. I like the way that they're playing the game right now. San Francisco Shock, I think, are the team that have been slighted the most in my list. Of like, they are 12-0. They have been absolutely dominant in this stage. But I just worry about them. I think it was because I was so high on them in Kickoff Clash, and then they just underperformed when they played against teams of equivalent level. But no, I think it's more Shock have looked better because they've been beating down NA teams. Like, let's have a look at the Shock, the teams that Shock beat. Shock beat Dallas, Boston, Atlanta, Florida, Vancouver, Toronto, right? So it's like the only 2 valuable matches are the Atlanta match and the Dallas match, right? And Dallas was really bad at the start of the stage, as they always are. They've been very mid. And Atlanta Reign is the most inconsistent team that we have. Like, they haven't beaten the Gladiators, or they haven't played competitive, right? I think I have them in the right spot. I hope they prove me wrong. I would actually love to see this rookie team step up, but we'll see. We'll see. That is my power rankings for this week. I hope you guys appreciate them, enjoy them. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm about to do my bracket, so you can probably yell at me about that as well, but let me know what you guys think. I think there is a lot up in the air. That's why we only have 3 tier breaks, right? Like, that's why, like, I think there's just... the top is being decided by this. These guys will do whatever the fuck they want. And Florida Mayhem are the dark horses, I think, heading into this tournament. I could absolutely see both of these teams beating some of these teams and, like, having some upsets in that way, like upsets. But, yeah. I don't see many of these 4 teams losing to these teams. The only one that I think could massively overperform is probably Philly or Atlanta. Because it's playoff Phillies and playoff Atlanta. All right, and let's do my bracket then. This is, so if you haven't done your bracket yet, you should do it, but it's absolute chaos because you have to predict everything at once, and you have to predict which teams choose what team. You trust playoff Philly? I trust playoff Philly to do well. I don't trust playoff Philly to win. So, London versus the Atlanta Reign. I'm going to go to Atlanta. I think Atlanta's been playing way better. I think everyone knows what to expect when playing against London. I think Atlanta's dive is better than London's. So, in a meta in which, like, obviously London's going to try to play rush against them, I hope we don't see Atlanta try and mirror it at all. But I just don't see it. I think London's getting a little overrated right now. Thank you very much. Because I feel like, you know, obviously London's been on a crazy high trajectory, but I think people are just a little too biased, and they did have a pretty simple record this one to go almost 6-0. So Then Shanghai versus Toronto. I think Shanghai is going to 3-0 Toronto Defiant. I don't think Toronto is going to be able to match the dive of the Shanghai Dragons. Then we're going to go Philadelphia Fusion versus the Hangzhou Spark. I think Philly's going to feel themselves. I'll give the Hangzhou Spark a map. But Philadelphia Fusion, they're coming off of confidence. They're playing on all that. If MN3 is able to perform that level, I think they're in a good spot. Houston Outlaws versus the Florida Mayhem. Map 5 banger. I'm calling it. Houston is going to drop some spaghetti, but they'll pick it up eventually. But I think it's going to be a banger of a match. Map 5 clusterfuck, yeah. If there's going to be some weird shit that's going to happen, it's going to be happening this one. So San Francisco Shock are the #1 seed, so they pick first. And I think San Francisco Shock is going to pick Houston. It's probably Houston. I'm pretty sure they're pretty confident. I think Shock will win this one 3-1. I'll give Outlaws a map. But I think Shock, because Shock like to drop maps here and there, but I think Shock will beat them. Then it's going to be Seoul is the next team to pick, and Seoul will pick Atlanta, because I can totally see Seoul wanting to fight. I think Seoul is worried about Shanghai and Philly. I don't think they're worried about Atlanta. Is Glad second? It's Glad's? Okay, that's valuable. All right, so Glad's pick second. Does Glad's pick Atlanta as well? I think so. I think you pick the team that you know. I think you pick the evil that you know, right? And I think Glad's win this 3-1. I'll give Atlanta a map. And then Seoul picks Philly for yeah. Seoul is just I think Seoul's confident against Philly. I think Seoul's worried about Shanghai. I think I'll give Philly a map this time, but I don't think they're going to beat Seoul. No, not Philly. They just lost. But I think they probably understand why they lost. Like, I think if you're Seoul, I think you're confident in your ability to beat Philly compared to Shanghai in the playoffs. Seoul always struggles against Shanghai in the playoffs. Shanghai do not fuck around in the playoffs. MN 3-1, yeah. I think if you're Seoul, I think you're confident. I think you just know how to beat that. And that ends up being Seoul. Dallas get to play Shanghai. And I think Shanghai 3-0s the Dallas Fuel. I don't think Dallas is going to hold up against Shanghai. I think we're going to get a big old DPS diff in that series. All right, so let's look at this. We got San Francisco Shock taking on the Shanghai Dragons. I hope this happens. I really do. I think Shock chokes. I think Shock plays really badly. That's my take of this match. I think Shock play really badly. I think they get really nervous. They showed in the kickoff clash. They're really nervous. Shanghai are playing in their facility. They are comfortable. They know what they're doing. And I think they're going to beat Shock. All right, Gladiators versus Soul. Source, I made it the fuck up. Hey, it's a bracket. It's the definition of making it the fuck up. Glad's losers in map 5. I think Glad's losing map 5. Custa Apex Sim? No, you're not about to like what I'm about to do through the lower bracket. Give some text to it? What do you mean give some text to it? I think these teams are very close, but I think Gladiators have not been in this situation as much. I think that Fitz and Stalker are going to diff the Gladiators in that hit scan role. I think Prophet Kevster can go either way. I think Reiner Smurf can go either way. I think the backlines are both cracked. But I think in the hit scan role, Soul Dynasty have the advantage. Arns though, Arns isn't the Ash / Sojourn player for the Gladiators. It is Paddy Pan. And I think, do you guys trust that Paddy Pan is going to be able to keep his composure against Fitz / Stalker? Plus, I think Soul have a lot more flexibility in that eyes that they're willing to switch to the Sombra and play a different form of dive and stuff like that. I like Arns on Widow, and Arns plays on Circuit Royale, but he doesn't play for the most part. He did last tournament. Last tournament, he played Soldier. There is a big difference between playing Soldier and playing Sojourn. Remember when Paddy got too nervous and failed in the last tournament? Oh, wait. Hey, guys. You do that with your bracket. You guys want to be Paddy fans? Get it? Put him in your bracket. I think Soul Dynasty is going to be good. I think Soul Dynasty is going to be strong, and I think I trust Fitz more than I trust Paddy. I think it could go either way, but we'll see. London Spitfire versus Philly Fusion. We're going to go Fusion 3-2. A part of me wanted to give it to London, but I don't think I can. Like, are you telling me that MN3 Zest aren't about to fucking dunk on London? Like, London has done a good job with their rush, and they have their style, and it, you know, part of it might catch Philly off guard, and I think they will. But if we go anywhere into a dive map, London is going to get bonked. Like, absolutely bonked. Bellows rear is about to get farmed on repeat. Oh my god, you guys are off the goop. Backbone May is gonna fuck Fusion into the ground. Nah, you guys are off the goop. I feel like all of us NA fanboys have just watched London beat down the Timmies that exist in North America and just have convinced ourselves that we are the greatest in the world. And we just forgot. Like, remember, we talk about how great the San Francisco Shock is mechanically as players. Philadelphia Fusion has, if not a better DPS line than the San Francisco Shock. Overall, potentially a better DPS line. I think Zest MN3 is nuts. And not enough people are giving them respect. I think their problem is in that their backline isn't great, but I don't think London's going to be able to punish that. Carpe, yeah. If you still think Carpe is the best thing on Fusion, then you're living in a hole. All right. Atlanta Reign versus Toronto Fine. I think Atlanta beats Toronto. 3. We'll give Toronto a map. Dallas Fuel versus the Hangzhou Spark. I think the Spark are going to beat Dallas. Do I believe that? Do I really believe that? Spark are better. When was the last time Spark performed well in the playoffs? I think Spark fizzles out in an excellent Changoon run. Wait, what? That's actually so true. Wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. How does Houston Outlaws play Florida Mayhem back to... How is this what happens? Is Florida about to go out playing against the Houston Outlaws twice? That can't be right. It's probably based on seeding and who picks who. That shouldn't be. Yeah, I don't know how this happens, but this should not exist. So they're about to bust my bracket and I'm going to forget to do it again. It doesn't matter. It's whatever. I'm going 3-1 for Houston this time. I'm in the middle of something, Matt. I'll respond to you in a bit. I know. I saw what your message was. All right. Let's go. Atlanta Reign versus Philadelphia Fusion. I think Philly's going to go on a run. The aggressive style is going to overwhelm the Atlanta Reign. Dallas Fuel versus Houston Outlaws. Oh, man. What is this? It's honestly awful. I don't know. I think Dallas wins in map 5 and Houston Outlaws cry. It's like written in the sand, you know? Dallas is gonna clutch and Houston should have won. We're all gonna spam Jake Despair and we're all gonna talk about how it keeps happening. Gladiators versus Dallas Fuel. I think Gladiators 3-0 the Dallas Fuel. I think that's actually not gonna be close. But then we're like, oh, that was a fine result by Dallas. But Gladiators thing. Shock versus Philly. I think Shock wins. I think Shock wins 3-1. I think the Philly run comes to an end. I think Philly are just going to get outmatched. I think Proper is going to pull the backline apart. So I think if Philly are going to win this, it needs to come down to Aim God and Fixer for them to do it. And because I don't think Zest, like, yeah, I just don't think they're going to be able to have that. All right, Shock versus the Gladiators. I think the Gladiators win 3-2 in a banger of a series. I think Glads should beat the Shock by more, but I think they stumble a little bit, but I'm going to give it to the Glads. Shanghai versus Seoul. I'm going to go Seoul is going to win 3-2. That's also going to be a banger of a series. The Gladiators is going to play Shanghai in... Did they play earlier? I said... No, they didn't play earlier. Glads 3-1. I'm going to put the Gladiators over the Shock. I think Glads are going to play well. And then we're going to go Gladiators versus Seoul. And I think Gladiators win. The Gladiators are going to have the greatest lower run bracket in history. I just want the Gladiators to win. I think it'd be a really cool story to see the Gladiators win. Pure hopium. It is. There's no rhyme or reason. As I said, my logic of this... Okay, let me leave this with an asterisk because my reasoning of this is no analysis. I've already told you the analysis of this match is that I think Fitz and Stalker on that DP as that second DPS is going to be the difference maker. But the Gladiators win on the back of Shu and Skewed going crazy, and Prophet doesn't show up. That is my hot take of this final match, is that Prophet just doesn't show up. Whoa, hey, this is all just pure speculation. Sources, I made it up. But hey, we gotta make it interesting. Prophet always shows us, dude. Prophet's gonna show me the middle finger like he showed in 2018. I just know it. But hey, I gotta support my Australian coaches. I gotta support my NA bias. I hereby attest that I am a legal resident of the... What the fuck? Sure, whatever. Soul will win? Probably. Honestly, if you want a safe bet, I would bet on Soul as well. Like, you don't get me wrong. I think Soul is the safe bet. But hey, let's go Gladiators. Are you a legal resident? We'll find out. Let's be honest, I'm not gonna win. All right, that's my bracket. There it is. That's everything done for the recap. That is the weekly recap. We got some cool stuff coming up going into next week. Remember, the first matches begin on a Monday. Everything's going to be a little strange. Make sure to have a look at it. Do your pick'ems early. Work out when the schedule starts, when all the matches start. It's going to be a bonkers week. There will be great Overwatch. I'm excited for it. So we'll have some good fun. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Enjoy your week off because we're coming in hard and fast next week with a lot of matches. Thank you very much for all the support. I'll be doing a bunch of reviews throughout the week to start talking about these matches. Make sure to tune in for those. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that good stuff. I love you all, and I'll see you guys next time.